Hello and welcome to Connection of the Week. I'm Ted Goldstein, structural engineer with Atlas 2, and this is the series where we take you inside the HSS Connections Hub to share a new connection each week. This week's connection is the thin plate HSS beam to HSS column moment connection. This is a great option for relatively lightly loaded connections where compactness is key. Let's take a look. So here I've gone ahead and put together a calculation for a thin plate moment connection for HSS to HSS. And we can see on the right in the diagram that this is a relatively compact connection, and that's one of the biggest benefits here. But this is also a good opportunity to discuss a more general concept when we're talking about HSS design, which is the concept of effective width. So if we look at the image on the screen now, we can see that if we attach a plate to the face of an HSS tube and then we pull on that plate, the stress distribution is going to be nonlinear. It's going to put more load into the edges of the tube where it's stiffer. And that's something that we have to take into account when we do design. So in this case, you can see I've got a 12-inch square column with a half-inch wall, as well as a 10-inch square beam with a half-inch wall. I've put some loads on here, not dramatic loads, because again, this is a very compact connection. It's good in a lot of situations, but it's not the strongest connection you're going to find. So I've got a total of 16 kips of shear and 50 kip feet of moment. And if we look at the limit states up at the top of the screen, we're going to see, of course, most of the limit states are okay. Generally, those are limit states corresponding to the shear capacity of the connection. Over here, the flange bolts are okay. We have adequate bolt capacity for the moment. But on the right, we've got three limit states: the flange plate capacity, the flange plate weld to the face of the column, and the column moment capacity, all of which are over. And all of those are going to be related to that concept of effective width. So if we look here, we can go to, for example, the flange plate inputs, where we're giving the width and the thickness of the flange plate along with its weld size. And right now we have a 1/2 inch. If I were to go ahead and increase that to 3/4 of an inch, you can see it makes maybe a tiny bit of a difference in some of these numbers, but really they're hovering around very similar values. Similarly, if I increase the weld size from 3/8 to a 1/2 inch, which is a very large fillet weld size, again, it brought the value down for the weld, but the plate and the column really very little effect here. And again, the reason for that is that because of the flexibility of the face of the column, most of the load is going to where it's stiff at the edges. And it's very hard to get around that just by changing the sizes and thicknesses of the elements in the connection. So in this case, I'm going to go back to a 1/2 inch flange plate, because as we'll see, that is actually going to work for us. And a 3/8 weld, again, more reasonable numbers. Now we're still above 100%, but now I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to change the column size. So from a 12 by 12 by half, we're going to go to a 12 by 12 by 5/8, just increasing the thickness of the wall a little bit. And you can see now, not only are those limit states not an issue, but they're well below 100%. And so the goal here is really to illustrate the importance of taking the connections into account when you're sizing the members for a project. If we only choose the lightest member, the largest HSS size with the thinnest wall, when it comes time to make the connections, we sometimes do run into difficulties. So it's always best, even if you're not going to run every connection in a project, to go ahead, take maybe some of the worst cases, and really just check that the connections that we're looking to make to those members are doable with the wall thickness that's specified. So I hope this has been helpful. It applies to not just this particular connection, but to a lot of HSS connections. And I hope to see you again next week for the connection of the week.